Well, first things first, let's define the hashtag full Macintosh. This is a variant of the Dunning-Kruger effect that uses misinterpretation of academic terms. The pseudoscientific babble is used to create the appearance of a superior intellect and a false sense of authority. The old appeal to authority fallacy rises its head here, except the supposed authority figure is the speaker. Here's a good example of Jonathan McIntosh just being plain insane. Sometimes it's amusing to watch these GG fellows try to engage in ludic discourse. They're in way over their heads and they don't even know it. Well, this confused the hell out of me because ludic discourse is about the conversation within a play. For example, like Lord Macbeth and Lady Macbeth and what they're saying to each other within the play. So it makes you wonder, is Macintosh thinking that we're inside of a game, a play, a movie? What is this? Is this real life or is this fantasy? What is up with Macintosh? He uses this term, ludic discourse, and he uses it inappropriately. So it confused the hell out of me when I looked at his sentence and I'm like, what are you driving at? What the hell are you getting at? It's so stupid and it makes him look like a complete idiot because he's throwing in an academic term and he doesn't use it properly. Of course, I include some of the comments. The second one here is, are you referring to common usage or applications to game theory? Because his sentence is so screwed up, you don't know what the hell he's talking about. Well, then we get a new video by a man named Dan Olson, who likes to call himself the foldable human. And he gives the. I informed him that his video had gone full Macintosh in insanity and given my definition of it. And what does he do but provide his own example of full Macintosh? Look, dude, an ethnography is not something used in a dialectic breakdown. Those two don't go together. It's like a peanut butter and cheese sandwich. They just don't go together. You're talking about argumentation from people who have two different points of view trying to get to the truth. An ethnography is an anthropological method of studying a culture. That has nothing to do with debate or rhetoric or dialectics. It has nothing to do with that. You know, the Hegelian dialectic is a thesis, an antithesis, and synthesis, and you're talking about ideas, trying to get to the truth of the matter, get to the heart of the matter. An ethnography is not part of dialectics. Apparently, Gamergate is a terrorist group. Well, whatever can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. But just to indulge this nonsense, I will ask you, how the hell is emailing sponsors of the offending websites even remotely the harassment of women? But of course, King of Pole said it first. What do you think of us? Are we truly setting up bombs? Is emailing sponsors the same as beheadings? Is emailing sponsors on the same level as blowing up a church filled with little kids? Well, Dan Olson goes on and pretends that we are totally obsessed with Zoe Quinn and constantly harassing her. This is factually false. You're entitled to your own opinion, but not to your own facts. Emailing sponsors of offending media is not a fixation of Zoe Quinn. They cling to what happened to Zoe Quinn in mid-August because that's the only way they can be seen in a positive light. Hence the use of the LW tag for her. We don't need her because of the collusion that she has uncovered. They need her in order to feel better about themselves. Well, Mr. Olson goes on and says our normal is apparently anti-gay. I did not know this. Thanks for informing me of this non-truth. Seriously, emailing sponsors is not anti-gay. You do not speak for the LGBT people. This is the definition of branding. Again, assert something without evidence, and I dismiss without evidence. but making this claim is used to dehumanize the enemy, in this case, gamergate. Much in the same vein as calling black people apes or Jews rats. Look, Mr. Olson, I understand that you think you know everything. I get that. But I'm telling you, you don't know who we are. You don't know what we think. You're just not listening to us. We're trying to talk to you, but you're not listening. You have closed your mind due to your ideology of social justice, cultural Marxism, whatever it is your stupid ideology is, you're not listening. It doesn't allow you to listen to other people. We are anonymous, which means that there is no identity. We don't care about people being gay or straight or whatever. It doesn't matter to us. Okay? There is, or like the vacuum of space. There's another good one. There's no air. There's no gravity. There's nothing out there. It's just the black of space. It's just completely empty. That's what anonymity is. It's not a default. It's not a normal. There is no identity at all, period. End of story. There is no identity. It's a concept that you just can't grasp. You can't grasp the concept of anonymity. You don't know what that is. When you start talking about people submerging, when you talk about people submerging their identity on the internet, giving that up, yes, you are giving up not just your identity. You're giving up all identities. You have nothing at all. Completely empty. Yes, you are giving up your identity. You're just not picking up a default identity. There is nothing there. It's like zero. You have nothing. It's a concept that you're not able to understand. There is no identity at all, period. But you make one up for some reason. I don't know why the hell you would make one up. Why do you do this? There is no default. And then why do you say that we make one up? It's because you don't understand what we're trying to tell you. We are telling you there is no identity, period. To follow this on, we get the hashtag not your shield. Well, apparently this is all full of house slaves. I was going to use another word, but that's apparently what you think of people who are in not your shield, because you're so definitely wrong on who we are demographically. We're not all white men. That's an assumption out of you. It's a base assumption out of you. But because you don't understand the concept of anonymity, you think that everybody has to be white and male. That's your base assumption. Not mine. That's yours. You made an assumption that everybody is white and male in Gamergate, but that's totally wrong. You don't know who we are. There's no reason for you to draw that conclusion. You have no information at all. You just completely fabricated it out of thin air. And the people in Not Your Shield are trying to send a message to you that you don't speak for them. You are not in charge of them. Because somehow the social justice warrior seems to think they can speak for minorities. But if a minority calls them out on their bullshit, that person must be an Uncle Tom or an Oreo or whatever. But the reality is that the social justice warrior is the most racist white person imaginable who feels that they know what's best for the POCs. God, I hate that term. It's the modern turn on colored. Do you not understand, Mr. Olson? Whenever you say person of colored, it's colored person. Like the old white and colored water fountains of old. The message of the hashtag is to tell you that you can't control non-whites in their speech. But you don't want to hear that because you are the great white master that knows what's best for his slaves. You're the slave master, not me. And that's what they're trying to tell you. Of course, the next point he tries to make is Gamergate is supposedly nothing but white males who are trying to push out the invaders. What survey of the Gamergate membership do you have to draw this conclusion? I know where it comes from, actually. I've criticized the hegemony of play in a previous video. Why are you still acting like we didn't uncover anything? Because if you were even to mention the name Brenda Laurel, you would have to admit that the founder of the Games Development Conference actually does seek to control independent gaming. The GDC owns Gamasutra, which is one of the websites under fire, and the Independent Games Festival. They're actually using Gamasutra and the IGF to push the social justice agenda. We know that. We know your ideology. We know there's people with money pushing it. Well, I'm going to calm down for a second. Let's take a break and do some kitchen vocabulary. I want to talk about something an idea that I had come up with when I was in college. They were talking about multiple intelligences and how different students learn in different ways. And I was thinking, it's probably what people do in real life when they think of themselves. They have multiple identities. Every person has multiple traits about themselves, such as race, gender, economic class, sexuality, and so on. For someone like myself, I am white, male, Christian, American, heterosexual, partially blind, Army veteran, so forth. It's based on how you identify yourself. If you see yourself as an athlete, that would be more important to you than your gender or anything else. Sometimes the multiple identities a person has is ordered in a hierarchy, but for others, the individual traits are fluid and equal in importance. If you go into a room filled with people, you look for the common traits in order to start bonding with them. Well, let's take Malcolm X, for instance. He was a black nationalist that saw race first in his own identity. He traveled to Mecca and saw people of every ethnic group getting along with each other and realized that America had a cultural problem, not a racial one. That's because the white Muslims perceive themselves as a Muslim first and a white man second, just as I do as a Christian. My faith in Christ is more important to me than my whiteness. Hell, the only reason I call myself white is because other people tell me that I am. Now let's get back to the foldable human. Goes with the charge that we're astroturfing with sock puppet accounts. You really have no idea who we are, do you? But if you need an example of that, look no further than the Stop Gamergate 2014 hashtag. Now that was astroturfing with sock puppet accounts. The next point he says is culture jamming. Well, culture jamming. Thanks, I agree with this. But it paints you as the status quo. Is this a Freudian slip, perhaps? This is a great example of full Macintosh. You didn't use the term correctly in your diatribe. Even though true, you meant it as an attack against us. Yeah, then he pulls out the token card. The Not Your Shield is the Black Friend token card. Wow, that's 4 times now that you've misrepresented us in a demographic sense. You don't know who we are. Why would you say this? You're just throwing up stuff, seeing what would stick. You so far have consistently asserted nonsense about us ideologically and demographically. You have no basis for this. Of course, I was looking at one of his tweets today where he quotes from Jezebel. Well, that's a sister site of Kotaku. Kotaku is one of the websites under fire, and now we're actually ganging up on Gawker Media, the parent company for both Jezebel and Kotaku. But for some reason, Dan Olson wants to think that Jezebel would never ever lie to him. Would never, oh gosh, the media would never lie to you. And the next part of his video misinterprets the phrase tits or GTFO. I understand how you screwed this up. Your ideology overthinks everything. I've already mentioned it earlier in this video about anonymity as being no identity. None. None whatsoever. There is no identity. It's not a default. It's not a normal. There is no base assumption at all. There's nothing. The message is clear even in the picture that you use to define the phrase. Did you even read the post that you're quoting from? You don't get points for your identity. It's completely the opposite of how you think. Most people in the social justice ideology believe in something like, they call it the progressive stack. You don't listen to the person and their idea. You listen to the identity and the group. No wonder you get things screwed up. You don't listen to what's being said. You only listen to an identity. So apparently a woman gets more points just for being a woman. Actually, that's somewhat true, and that's what the post was telling you, was that there's girlness. We pay attention to you. Even if what you're saying is completely stupid, you could be an airhead, but we'll pay attention to you and entertain you because you're a girl. But on the internet, you don't have an identity. You're not a girl at all. You're nothing. I'm nothing. For some reason, you're not able to understand the concept. Not only is she not a girl, but I'm not a guy. I'm not a man on the internet. I'm nothing. Of course, I like the next one. He says Vivian James is our perfect woman. Well, she is the perfect woman, but not for the reasons you list. You say that she's passive and silent. Are you kidding? She's sassy and vocal. You even show pictures in your video clearly disproving your own claim. That's a nasty habit you have there. You talk over visual evidence that just outright disproves you. You did that with the Man of Steel clip as well. I'm not sure what you mean by conventionally attractive either. Every video game character rivals Kate Upton in beauty, but Vivian is ordinary. Let me show you the actual Vivian James pictures that you're using in your video. Is that not sassy and vocal? What the hell is wrong with you? You even put that in your video, and I'm like, it disproves you. Why would you do that? There are plenty of other pictures that would disprove your submissiveness that you would think. I mean, where would you even get this idea from? Well, the next section he talks about Anita and Zoe are invaders. Look, they're minor players in the grand scheme of things. I've already mentioned it earlier about the literally who tag. We don't care. She's not the media. She's not the ideology. She's not the agenda pushing. Neither one of them are important. They're only important to you because you want to frame us as a terrorist group, as a hate group. You actually believe that. You actually believe everything the media tells you. This is not what we're doing. We're not harassing them. They're not important to us. That's why we say literally who. I mean, who are you talking about? This next section he talks about gamer is a consumer demographic. Basically not a person but a slave to consumerism. I would like to inform you that we are indeed human beings with free will and agency. Then we get this. Reviewers are priests telling them what to buy. Oh boy. We aren't actually interested in the quality of a game to make our own informed decision of what to purchase, but we're cult members. Yeah, that's bullshit. Just more branding. Well, it gets worse. The free market is their God. No, dude. My God is Jesus Christ. For other people, it may be somebody else. But the free market means anyone can be a customer or a seller. But you know this and you even explain this. We're telling you this. So where the hell does this idea of Anita being an invader come from? It doesn't make any sense. This part is where the mental gymnastics come into play. He's totally projecting himself by saying we think the market is a zero sum. No. No, no, no. She does have equal footing with us. But it's also on the flip side, we have equal footing with her. You seem to not understand what equality means. I am just as much a human being as Anita Sarkeesian or Zoe Quinn or you, Dan. I am your equal. My voice counts just as much as yours. You're not superior to me. There is no way that a believer in free market perceives the marketplace as zero sum. If we worship freedom, then how are we afraid of the other? But of course, that assumes that your initial lie on demographics and ideology. I mean, you don't know who we are or what we believe, so you invent this crap that contradicts itself. If I worship the free market, and I worship freedom, that means she's free from me. I don't control her. I'm free from her. She doesn't control me. That's what freedom is. That's what a free market is. Nobody controls. There is no power relation. There is a difference between free market and your definition of capitalism. You believe that there is a power relation between capital and labor, men and women. That's what you believe. That's what you've been taught. That's what your belief system, your ideology tells you. That's not what I believe, and that's not necessarily what's true. That's your base assumption that there's a power relation or at work. There is none. Not in a free market. A free market means I don't have control over what Anita buys, and Anita has no control over what I buy. Nobody has control over anybody. It's freedom all around. Do you not understand what freedom means? No one outside the normal has an interest in video games. You haven't established what the normal is because you haven't established what the demographic is, and you haven't established what the ideology is. You fabricated everything because you have no source of information. We know who Digray is, and we've seen the ideology in it. We've seen the women's studies, cultural Marxist ideology floating around. We know who Alex Leifshitz is. We know about critical distance. We know these things. This is going on for months because we have the truth. It's going to feel really, really awful for you when this is over with. When Gawker Media is being destroyed and it's finally bankrupt and they're firing Ben Katura out of Polygon, which is a Vox Media subsidiary. You know, when these websites are finally crashing, you'll finally accept what we've been telling you the whole time. You're dismissive of all the evidence, so therefore it must be an ideology that forces us in there. That allows for his belief in we're a bunch of terrorists. He thinks it's all ideological. We don't have any of it. It's all hogwash. The only way you can make your claim of base assumptions is to dismiss all the evidence that we've found. That's what's so fascinating is that you don't believe anything. You think that the Zoe post is the only thing that we have, that we didn't dig up anything. No, dude, we dug up all sorts of information. We have this information. We have your idea. We've heard your ideology for 2 months. We've read the papers. We know what you're saying. We've heard it before. Why are you repeating it? That's what's so fascinating. You're repeating the same thing that we've read. I've read the paper. You've said that we're a consumer demographic. That's what was said within the hegemony of play. I've read that. I've got a copy of it. It's not the only thing that says that. We have this evidence. That's why you're not fooling us. It's going to continue because we have the actual truth. This is what your ideology is. So it just begs the question, why the hell are you defending it so hard? Either you truly believe in the ideology being pushed, or they're paying you. I like this last one. This one's being used by a lot of different people. This one is we don't need criticism. The problem with you saying this is that it's easy to pick up on the code words that you're using. Feminist criticism is like every other opinion. I'm so glad that you have an opinion, but I don't have to conform to it, nor do I have to hear it. My opinion, you don't have to hear it, and you don't have to conform with it. That's called freedom. You have the freedom of speech, which means I can't call the cops on you. But it also means I don't have to listen to you either. At some point, you'll understand what freedom means. Why would you do that? It's like concern trolling. It's what you're doing. You're not just expressing yourself. Oh, I'm a critic of art. This is high art, and art has critics. Yes, but nobody gives a fuck about the art critic. It's fantastic that you criticized my work. But you know what? I'm going to keep doing my work, and there's nothing you can do about it. That pisses you off. And I know it does. They're using this line. Ben Contura put it in one of his recent editorials that we're not here to censor, we're here to criticize because video games are growing up as and becoming more of an adult industry. Yeah, all the flowery bullshit language isn't fooling anybody. You use words like improvement. Oh, feminist criticism is there to improve your work. You bullshit. You're trying to get rid of what you don't like, forcing us to make products for you. Alex Weitzman had done a thread within Kotaku in action. He was a moderator for a Vine. He says, "Aw, you saw my current shame that I never got back to that debate about the Spider Woman ass." Well, apparently that was too sexual, and then he mentions, "Still, though, it exists." I responded with, "Ooh boy, you wonder why people fear censorship from social justice types over non issues. Just because some dislike the Spider Woman cover doesn't mean we should conform to that opinion. You know that you can't censor art outright anymore, thus, feminist critique is used to browbeat artists into submission. Gamergate really is an issue about control over art." But no, the mere existence of the cover doesn't pose a threat in and of itself, it's just a drawing. On the flip side, though, it's hard not to see the defensiveness from comic fans as being an implicit message that those who are offended have no right to be offended. To say you can't change this, it's for me, is to beg the question of what's left over for the other person, thusly the label of insular and exclusionary. I've been hearing this nonsense, rewording censorship into improvement for 2 months now. That someone's art is problematic, and to dare stand up for freedom is insular or exclusionary. To say you can't change this, it's for me, is to beg the question of what's left over for the other person. Plenty. There is a whole wide internet out there that makes connecting with like minded people easier than ever. And the answer is everything. It is completely screwing of the situation. They don't have to buy the variant cover, and if we just move the goalpost to all the comics are offensive to me, as is the implication of your post, then now what? Do I get to be offended over the alternative that caters to them? Now I am offended? It should never be a zero sum game. Art comes in all forms, even if you don't consider gaming art. Changing art is against what art is. Expressing emotion, artistic freedom, all kinds of criticism of thought and society. Art doesn't work when it's censored or must confine inside an arbitrary ideology, since you end up with the equivalent of religious paintings and sculptures from the Middle Ages. It's like we have already forgotten the lessons learned by the Age of Enlightenment. Your criticism is designed to shut down. We know this. The problem is, why do you even bother believing that you're somehow helping? You reframe your entire worldview as if you're the civil rights activist, which is what I find fascinating. I'm the proletariat. The Gamergate is the actual proletariat. Let that sink into you. You're defending the status quo. You're defending the corporations. You're defending the power elite and their ability to censor art under their will. Do I not get a right to stand up for myself? Do I not get a right as a member of the working class, as the proletariat? Do I not get a voice in this? Can I not express my voice? Do you not know who you are?